Lelouch has to destroy the Britannian Empire to create a better future for his sister Nunnally. To accomplish this, he has two powers at his disposal: an astonishing intellect that goes beyond the genius level, and Geass, the power to make anyone obey one of his commands. With these two powers, Lelouch is confident in his ability to bring down the Empire, but once he actually tries leading a group of terrorists against the Britannian army, he comes to a crucial realization. His abilities are useless on their own if he can get the rebels to trust him and follow him. He has to create a symbol to unite the enemies of Britannia under his command. Lelouch thus creates Zero, an alter ego that will become his ultimate tool in the destruction of the Empire. A symbol against everything Britannia stands for. This is the point where Code Geass introduces us to one of the core elements that drive its narrative: the importance of symbols and their power over human consciousness, a topic that is explored in multiple ways throughout the series. The Britannian Empire itself uses symbols to display dominance over its colonies. Territories that fall under the Empire's control aren't allowed to retain their name and are named after numbers instead. What was once Japan has now become Area 11, and the Japanese people became 11s instead. Under this symbol, the Japanese were forced to cut ties with their cultural heritage and national identity. 11 is the symbol of their oppression, the symbol of their dehumanization in the eyes of the Britannians. In defiance to the oppressive label assigned to them, the rebels and the resistance fighters still cling to the memory of Japan. The image of the Japanese flag is always present in the background of their headquarters, a symbol to remind them of their once great nation. In a similar vein, the rebels carry katanas, the quintessential symbol of the samurai and the Japanese warrior spirit. Taking this into consideration, the most obvious course of action for Lelouch would be to use this nationalistic sentiment to his advantage. But instead of using these traditional Japanese symbols, Lelouch chooses to remove the nationalist element from his rebellion by choosing the mask of Zero as his symbol. Everything about Zero is a calculated performance to create an army that will rival Britannia's might. Zero's exterior doesn't give off any sense of political or national affiliation, and he proclaims himself to be an ally to every enemy of Britannia, an ally of the powerless against the powerful. In fact, even the name Zero implies that he is a featureless avatar upon which the rebels can project their hopes. It's for the same purpose that Zero names his followers the Black Knights, rejecting any connection to the Japanese tradition. It's a name that implies that his army is a force of justice and rightful retribution against Britannia's oppression. For Lelouch, the Japanese resistance groups that cling to anachronistic ideals and symbols of the past are just a nuisance to either exploit or get rid of. From his point of view, the only way to change the world is to cut ties to the past, to restart the world from zero. In opposition to Zero's radical ideas, we have Suzaku, both a friend and a nemesis to Lelouch. Suzaku wants to change the oppressive system of the Britannian Empire as well, but he wants to do it from the inside. By joining the Britannian military and advancing his rank, he too aims to become a symbol of hope for the Japanese people, hope for a future in which they will be treated as equals. Suzaku's way of thinking seems idealistic and naive, but he does end up achieving some important results. Thanks to his efforts, Suzaku becomes the first 11 to get knighted by none other than Princess Euphemia, a member of the Britannian royal family. And Euphemia herself gets inspired by Suzaku's resolve and decides to use her power and influence to stop the unjust treatment of the 11s. She hopes to achieve this by creating a special zone in which the Japanese people won't be treated as second-class citizens. The creation of the specially administrated zone of Japan is the best outcome that the Japanese people could have hoped for. A place where they will finally be able to rebuild a life that resembles the one they had in the past. The White Knight Suzaku and the Britannian Princess Euphemia are set up to become the symbols of the cooperation between Japan and Britannia. But this necessarily leaves Zero out of the picture. Without the support of the Japanese rebels, Zero's existence is bound to lose its meaning. This is the point where we get to perhaps the most controversial episode of the show, the incident that changes everything going forward. In episode 22, Lelouch loses control over his Geass and seemingly by mistake orders Euphemia to slaughter the Japanese that gathered for the inauguration of the special zone. In the scene, Lelouch's Geass going off on its own is clearly framed as something unexpected and beyond his control. However, if we take into consideration Lelouch's actions so far, this was the perfect move to restore Zero's power. On a subconscious level, Lelouch has always known that this was Zero's destiny. For the world to be rebuilt, it must be destroyed first. Only then will the world truly be able to restart from zero. But to achieve this, Lelouch will also have to sacrifice his humanity in the process. This is a crucial point where a dichotomy starts to create between the man behind the mask and the symbol of the masses. Lelouch embraces the role of the Machiavellian villain that will do anything to achieve his goals, while simultaneously elevating Zero as a hero of justice that can do no wrong. Behind the scenes, Lelouch orders Yuffie to slaughter the Japanese, while in the eyes of the public, Zero is the one that stops the murderous princess and saves them from the massacre. This way, Zero gets re-established as a symbol of justice, while Euphemia gets framed as the symbol of Britannia's hypocrisy and brutality. As the audience, we know that this is all a fabrication, but to the onlookers, Lelouch's scenario is the undeniable truth. Euphemia is the tyrant, Zero is the savior. Whether they intended for it or not, these roles are pushed onto them by the public, because symbols on their own have no meaning. Meaning has to be assigned to them. In the process of becoming symbols, both of them undergo a process of dehumanization. In the eyes of the public, they become the personifications of abstract concepts. Zero is justice, ergo Euphemia has to be injustice. At this point, the only way for Lelouch to move forward is to embrace this blatant lie and push on with his plan. Sacrificing his humanity to Zero is the ultimate step he has to take to destroy Britannia. But this is something he fails to accomplish in the first season. That's because the last link to his humanity is Nunnally, the very reason why he started the rebellion in the first place. When Nunnally gets kidnapped by V2, Lelouch abandons a crucial battle to go save her, abandoning his duty as Zero and leaving the Black Knights on their own when they needed him the most. Lelouch wasn't ready to let go of his humanity after all. Lelouch's internal conflict between his own happiness and Zero's purpose gets once again picked up in the second season, when Nunnally reappears as the new viceroy of Area 11. But this time she isn't just a passive observer. Nunnally and Suzaku plan to recreate the specially administrated zone of Japan. This time, Nunnally takes it upon herself to become the symbol of hope that Euphemia was supposed to be, the same symbol that Lelouch twisted and destroyed. Zero was always meant to be a tool for creating a better world for Nunnally, but now he has become the very thing that threatens her existence. The Black Rebellion has lost its purpose at this point, well, at least for Lelouch it has. There is a crucial scene in episode 7 when Lelouch is about to give up, but just as he is about to abandon everything, Cullen shows up to confront him. Cullen is fully aware that Zero is just an act that Lelouch has put up to realize his personal goals, but even so, without Zero, the Black Rebellion is doomed to fail. All the struggles and sacrifices made along the way would become meaningless bloodshed. Lelouch's rebellion has stopped being just about Nunnally a long time ago. The new world that Zero set out to create needs to be for everyone's sake, not just Nunnally's. Lelouch needs to give himself up to the lie he fabricated to follow through on his promise of a better world. The same sentiment is expressed by Suzaku in episode 17.
君の嘘を償う方法は一つ。その嘘を本当にしてしまえばいい。君は正義の味方だと嘘をついたな。だったら本当に正義の味方になってみろ。ついた嘘には最後まで。しかしどうすれば。この戦いを終わらせるんだ。君がゼロなら。いや、ゼロにしかできないことだ。世界が平和に、みんなが幸せになるやり方で。
There is no more turning back. Lelouch needs to stop acting as Zero. Instead, he needs to become Zero, become the symbol the world needs him to be. Zero's mask is Lelouch's greatest asset against Britannia, but it is a symbol that from the beginning was built on a lie. Exposing the lie would mean depriving Zero of any credibility. And that's just the thing that happens in episode 19. Schneisel reveals to the Black Knights that Zero is Lelouch, an exiled Britannian prince that was using the power of Geass to achieve his own selfish goals. Nothing Lelouch could have said would have made any difference. In the eyes of the Black Knights, he had already become the symbol of the very tyranny they were supposed to be fighting against. Despite this unexpected turn of events, Lelouch is determined to carry on with his plan. Just as before, he embraces the lie and once again becomes the symbol people need him to be. By getting rid of his father, he inherits the title of Emperor and takes control of Britannia. Lelouch switches the mask of Zero for the mask of the Emperor, becoming the embodiment of everything Zero stood against. This time with Suzaku by his side, Lelouch is ready to play out the final scenario in his campaign to recreate the world. After defeating Schneisel and the Black Knights, Lelouch becomes the undisputed Emperor of Britannia, but also pretty much the ruler of the world, as Britannia is the only superpower state left. But as the Emperor triumphantly celebrates his victory, a familiar silhouette appears in the distance. Suzaku under the guise of Zero has appeared to end what Lelouch started when he first wore his mask. This is the final stage of the Zero Requiem, the point where Zero transcends Lelouch's limitations as an individual and becomes an entity that is completely separated from its creator, an immortal symbol of justice and hope. Both Suzaku and Lelouch have to give up their desires and their humanity to play out this one last farce. In the eyes of the onlookers, Zero and the Emperor aren't people anymore, they are the embodiments of abstract ideals. Zero, the symbol of the new world, heroically leaps forward, avoiding every bullet fired at him, and with his sword swiftly finishes off the Emperor of Britannia, the symbol of the tyranny that dominated the old world. Zero has finally achieved his goal. With the last Emperor gone, the old world is destroyed and a new one can be built from its ashes. And with this, Lelouch gives up his control over the future. Zero is the inheritance he leaves to the world, and Suzaku is the one that will carry out his will by giving up his own identity to become a symbol of hope. Hope for a world that should finally be able to cut ties with its past and start from zero to build a better future.